Scumbling is a technique for use in scene painting. It's a broad term and can mean a lot of different things. Any sort of wet blend that's in a sort of a random or erratic pattern is technically considered a scumble. A scumble should be a wet blend. It should be two or more colors blending together while they're wet, and usually the brushes or the tools do a little bit of a twisting action. There are some variations, but we'll just talk through and demonstrate a simple brush scumble. Doesn't really matter what color, but the first color doesn't matter so much how it goes on. You can destroy brushes sometimes with an improper use of the brush, so be aware of how the brushes like to work. But this is not a bad brush technique. This is, and my brown is really dominating. But this is a scumble, and the idea of a scumble is that you get the original color, the original lavender, you get the original brown, and you get a number of shades in between. And you're creating an erratic pattern. This is a good base if you're trying to do foliage, not with these colors, of course. As with any technique, you have to think hard about making things look random. If you don't, you will subconsciously start to create patterns. If I'm not thinking about it, I'm going to just do the same couple of movements, and all of these stamping motions are all the same. I need to intentionally do something different. I need to have larger areas of dark. I need to have some areas where the other color dominates. But this is generally what is referred to as scumbling. Like I said, you can scumble with any tool whatsoever. You can scumble with rags, you can scumble with brushes, you can scumble with rollers, you can scumble with just about any tool. But I have to think hard and work hard to get, areas here that are purple, and then areas that are more brown, and that this brown area isn't about the same size as this brown area. I have to really concentrate on what I'm doing and think about it. I can't just let it be random and think it will be random. If I let it be random, it will create a pattern. I can do scumbling with sponges. The natural sponges work the best, the natural sea sponges. If you get a household sponge that's square, you're going to create very regular patterns. At least with the variable natural sponges, you can rotate them a lot. Sometimes scumbling with a sponge is called sponging and not scumbling at all. Some of these scene painting names overlap and crisscross depending on your reference and who's teaching it and depending on what you want to call it sometimes. But the idea with the scumbling is that there is a little bit of a twisting motion and things are a little bit more erratic and there's some drag through the colors. And you want to rotate the sponge. You don't want to just keep putting the same pattern down. Even if I twist the pattern, I'm still just putting that same shape of the sponge. I need to twist the sponge around. I need to use different surfaces of it if I want to try to generate something that looks a little more random and irregular. If I start with a round sponge like this, I'm more than likely going to always put a round curved shape in with it. Can't really get around that. It's better to have something a little more irregular. And now what I'm doing, I've stopped doing a scumbling and I'm kind of doing a stippling technique. I'm using a sponge to stipple. You can stipple with a lot of different tools. You can stipple with a brush, you can stipple with a sponge, but just dabbing it on without that twisting motion is actually more of a stipple. If I start twisting it, and you notice that this round one creates very regular twisting shapes, almost like Starry Night. So there would be reasons to use it if you were doing that. But if I wanted to create something a little more random, I'm going to have trouble with the round one because it's round and all of the various sizes are the same shape. Stippling with a brush would be something like this. Stippling is usually not a wet blending technique, although you can do it as a dry brush like I'm doing here, or a wet blending technique. But with all techniques you do, you want to try to create non-patterned shapes. And it's hard to do when you've got a very specific shaped pattern like a brush, and that's the only thing that you're doing. If I start to do side stuff, or I start to twist it, I'm suddenly scumbling now, no longer stippling. Some of those Starry Night patterns, stippling, more stippling.